In America, we call it a thumping. In the UK, they're calling it humiliation. All would seem to be perfect for England and America. Then again, little is as it usually seems. They're not called the greatest generation for nothing, and there are so few left to help us remember what this day meant to America and the world 70 years ago. And as the world seeks out the people who would inflict pain for no other reason than someone doesn't believe as they do, we turn attention to a band of cowards in America doing almost the same thing. Fear no one, question everything, live the mantra. I'm Ed Berliner. This is MidPoint.
As we conduct this vital work, we must ensure that we bring our country together. As I said in the small hours of this morning, we will govern as a party of one nation, one United Kingdom.
British Prime Minister David Cameron isn't going anywhere, at least for now, but where is the United Kingdom going? The PM is back at 10 Downing Street, but opposition leaders from the Labour, Liberal, Democrat and UKIP parties have all resigned. Okay, then what about Scotland? Here come the answers. Welcome to MidPoint. He served as a member of Parliament for the Conservative Party for over a decade and is now the senior economic consultant for Euro-Pacific Capital. Welcome back, John Browne. John, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
It is wonderful to see you again.
Was this as much of a shock, though, really, as people seem to make it out to be?
Yes, I think it was. I think you saw a lot of undecided people and some who'd already gone into UKIP and not the party like UKIP. Liberals who were beginning to wobble more than liberals normally do, and they were terrified at the thought of Miliband and the socialists with mansion tax and all these amazingly irresponsible new taxes and a defence cut and all that sort of stuff. And so I think they were absolutely terrified of the prospect of a socialist victory, and they fled into the Conservative Party.
How will this now affect America? Because we have to think of that. And then I'm going to ask you a little bit about the American ally issue as well after that.
Well, that's the main effect is going to be Britain as an ally. First of all, I think it will seal the fact that Britain will remain in the European Union because Cameron is pro-Euro. And he also will conduct his referendum that he promised in the last Parliament and ratted on. He will give it this time, I think, but they'll probably win it because it'll be a dirty referendum. And by dirty, I mean the government plus EU funding will fund the no vote to leave. And that will persuade people, maybe, just by propaganda. As Swiss used to have clean referenda.
What will be, though, the effect of America and Europe or the United Kingdom as an ally? Because the more I'm reading today, there seem to be some who indicate that this may lessen the role of Britain as an ally. They're seeing Germany as more of the power now in Europe.
Absolutely. You anticipated the second part of my first answer. Because inside the European Union, Britain is going to be weakened by the Europe, and Europe is basically run by Germany. And so you're going to see an increasingly powerful German position and a weakening British position, and therefore a weakening in the special relationship, in my opinion. And that's very, very sad, because the Germans have different ideas to us. Of course, if they ran the show, there'd be no chewing gum on the streets and trains would run on time, but you'd be a second-class citizen. And Britain really has shown itself to be very anti-socialist, and this may spread to the United States, this wave against socialism. And of course, also, there's the question of devolution is going to be raised, because in the English Parliament now, which some people call the British Parliament, and effectively it is, you've now got a whole lot of SNP people who are out for Scottish independence. They're going to be voting on English matters. And so the British and English members of Parliament are going to say, why should you, who want an independent Scotland, be voting on England? And they're going to say, why should you, when we want an independent Scotland, be voting on Scottish affairs? So this whole question of devolution, further weakening England as an ally, will come into play.
I want to talk about that Scottish idea here in just a moment. Let's go ahead and get the local perspective on the UK future. Let us bring in London-based writer-broadcaster Isabel Hilton. Isabel, are you there?
I am. Good evening.
Hi, Isabel. Good evening. Now, we've been talking about the effects here, but let's get your opinion then from the ground level, if you will, because there seems to be a tremendous talk over here about the fact that the United Kingdom may not be united much longer, and that a lot of what happens in Scotland now may eventually lead to the breakup of the United Kingdom and change everything. What do you hear there?
Oh, I think that's highly likely. If you look at the map of the United Kingdom now, you colour it in according to the, the way people voted. There is no national political party any longer. There's a tendency to confuse England with Britain. England is not Britain. It's a very large part of Britain, but it's not the United Kingdom. There are 4 countries. And now if you look at the map, you'll see actually there has been one Conservative returned from Scotland in the last 2 elections. The Tories used to be quite a big party in Scotland, but they've lost that a long time ago. So until this election, Scotland was divided between Labour and SNP. The SNP have gone from 6 seats to 56 seats. It's a remarkable victory. But if you look at the map now, you see Scotland has gone in a completely different political direction. So the Labour Party isn't a national party. The Conservatives haven't been a national party for some years now. The SNP are clearly not a national party. There is nobody that actually can plausibly say we represent Britain.
Isabel, what would happen then? What is the general consensus, I guess, if indeed Scotland eventually gets to the point of its independence, the United Kingdom then breaks up, there's a difference then. How would that affect the United Kingdom militarily? How do you think it would affect the relationship with the United States, and certainly how the country is seen around the rest of the world? Okay, she's frozen for a moment. We'll get back there in a moment. When the Skype comes up, let me ask you that same question.
I'm sorry, I was watching.
No, that's all right.
So,
if indeed Scotland does become an independent country, if that happens, there is the breakup of the United Kingdom, things change, how will that then make the rest of the world look at London, or look at England rather? How will that change all the perceptions?
Less part of the European Union becoming under Germany, less because a major part of Britain, Great Britain, has been split off as an independent country. It'll be all less important. Britain will be less important and therefore less powerful and influential ally.
So then how do they hold that off? Is there a way for the United Kingdom now, the way it stands, and the people who are in power now, to prepare for that when that happens and to ensure that England will not become a lesser power?
Well, if the Conservatives prepared under maybe Boris Johnson eventually to bring UKIP back into the fold, it would be a far broader church. A conservative, the real conservative church, and the last ones to even have seats in Scotland, that type of conservative. And I think that would tend to bring the thing on just the immigration policy alone. There'd be a universal feeling, and if they've reached out to universal problems like immigration, they would start bringing their church together. And I think that could have a good effect.
What's the issue then, and what is the outcome of Nigel Farage stepping down as the head of the UKIP party?
Miliband is out and he'll stay out. Clegg will stay out. Nigel Farage will resign, has resigned. He'll be voted back because he is UKIP. I mean, he's like Margaret Thatcher was, Churchill was to Britain in the war. I mean, without Farage, UKIP is finished. And I think they'll be wise enough, or will be wise enough, to realize that and vote for his return.
I got about a minute left here. I understand that Isabel is back with us. I only have about 60 seconds, Isabel, but you come in at a perfect time here, because what is the feeling then in England at this point, knowing that it is now looking, if we look into the future, that Scotland may indeed break up and the United Kingdom will be no more? What are the general population thinking? And the general population believes that what you should do is, at that moment, you should just go ahead and cut the Skype. 30 seconds. I'll ask you the same question then. What do you think on the ground the people there are considering now, knowing that this is coming?
Oh, I think they're considering, my gosh, I was frightened of socialism, and I was right, but now I've handed the Conservatives a reasonable majority of 7. And I've deserted UKIP, I've deserted the Liberals. Things are going to be difficult because Cameron is really a pinko conservative. He's not really a conservative.
A pinko conservative. Well done, John.
Therefore, he'll start to lose his people. Things will be difficult. And they'll start going back to the Liberals, going back to UKIP and things like that. But the SNP is set on a brake ride. I mean, I had Conservative friends in Scotland who'd voted all their lives Conservative, were voting Labour in this election to defeat the SNP.
And it's all going to change. John, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us, all right? Breaking back, we've heard a lot about self-driving cars, but what about self-driving semi-trucks? The Car Coach is next on MidPoint.